Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to introduce Julie Bidwell, who we've had the opportunity to work with at Credit Photo Software for a number of years due to her position as president and board member of ASMP in Connecticut. She's a photographer as well as an industry supporter, and we are very grateful to have had the opportunity to work with Julie over the years. And of course, we're thrilled when she agreed to be part of this interview series. So welcome, Julie.
And thank you for having me.
So tell me, Julie, what have you learned over your long and successful career, and how do you keep evolving?
So I've learned that the photography is not a straight line. There are a lot of ups and downs, and everyone's journey is going to be different. Mine started in a sort of traditional way. I do have a BFA in photography, and then I went to New York and I worked in a lab, and I moved to Los Angeles and I worked for photographers there. And then I moved back to Connecticut and worked as a photo editor and slowly started shooting. And I didn't really even know what kind of photography I wanted to do in the beginning. Young photographers, usually you just shoot anything that someone is going to pay you for. And I remember showing my book of portraits at the Hartford Courant. They had a Sunday magazine, thinking that they would hire me for portraits. And the art director looked at me and said, "Have you ever shot food?" And I said, "Nope." She said, "Do you want to try?" I said, "Sure." And that started my food photography. I had no idea what I was doing, and I just kind of figured it out as I went along, which is a lot of photography, just kind of figuring it out as you go along. And nowadays there's so many ways of doing that with YouTube and just so much information online that you can access. So I don't want to say it's easier now. Maybe it's harder for young photographers now because there's so much competition. I think technically it was harder back when I started shooting film, and just not having, like I said, not having so much information that's out there now. No way is better or worse. It's just different. Yeah, so that's
absolutely. It's just an evolution, right? It's like
yes.
so many. Digital photography has changed.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot of things, right? So how do you keep evolving? Are there ways that you keep informing yourself and educating yourself as you taken on different types of projects?
Well, I love photography, so I'm always, reading and trying new things, going to art museums. I get inspiration from a lot of different places. And then I try to, play with my lighting or try something different, or, try to find some new props that I want to use. And actually, when I was shooting a lot of food and I was just having trouble finding props that I wanted, so I had two friends of mine, one who was a potter and one who ran an arts organization, create a pottery class so I could learn to do pottery, so I could actually create props to use in my food photography. So I did that for about 10 years. And that was really fun. So I like bringing like all the different things that I'm interested in into my photography. I love interiors, interior design. So I love shooting interiors. I love antique shops and junking. So I'm constantly on the lookout for props and things that I can use in my photos. And sometimes they're just photos that it's just personal work and I'm just playing around with stuff. But also many times they do make it into client projects as well. So it's fun to kind of incorporate all of my different interests into my photography when I can.
Nice. That's awesome. So what in your journey to becoming a professional photographer, was there something that inspired you early on?
Well, it was a little more practical for me. So I was an art major at Syracuse University, So the freshman year, you do what's called freshman foundation. Basically, all the art students take the same classes. And then sophomore year, you're supposed to choose a major. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I chose painting, and I found out that I was a terrible painter. And then the second semester, sophomore year, I tried art education, and I did not like that. Praise to the teachers, but I yeah, it wasn't for me.
Fair enough.
And so I was trying to figure out, well, how can I be creative and make money? And I thought maybe I should try photography. So I went to the head of the photography department. I had no photographs. And I said, how can I get in this program? He said, take a photo 101 class over the summer, come back and show me 10 photographs, and I will let you know if you can be in the program or not.
Nice.
So I did that. I didn't even own a camera at the time. So my dad got me a camera. It was a Nikon FM. And I took a summer class at Manchester Community College here in Connecticut, which actually has a very good photo program still. I got my 10 photos printed up. I went and brought them to the director of the program, and he said, okay, you're in. So by this time I'm a junior. So I had to take all of my sophomore level photography classes plus the junior level. So I was doing intro photography and intermediate photography at the same time. But I loved it. I just loved it. And I ended up being one of the lab supervisors. So that gave me keys to the dark room. So I could go in there anytime I wanted to. And yeah, that's kind of how it started.
So talk to me a little bit about how the industry has changed over the past couple of decades.
I mean, it's changed a lot. Yeah. So, I mean, when I started, I was shooting, well, once I started shooting after I was working in the lab and all that kind of stuff. So I started with shooting medium format, transparency film and in black and white film. So, it was quite a process to do a shoot and then go to the lab and run a clip test and then go back and look at it. I mean, physically just driving back and forth and looking and then going back and getting it and getting your negatives and your contact sheets with black and white, and then finding a rental dark room and then printing up pictures. So it was just more laborious in that way. Yeah, so obviously now we're in digital. In some ways it's much easier because, your darkroom is on your computer. There's no driving back and forth to the lab, at least for me. I know a lot of younger photographers are embracing film photography these days, which I think is really interesting. And I have different thoughts on that. I wouldn't go back to those days, but that's obviously the biggest thing probably, is the switch to digital, and the internet kind of I don't want to say the demise of print publications, but it's definitely not like it used to be. So that's a huge change, just with your so much imagery being seen on a screen rather than in print. And I think there's more opportunities for young photographers these days. I think it's easier to get in because you can just take your pictures and you can put them online and people can see them. It's not like the old days where you had to get an appointment with an art director or a photo editor at a magazine and they decided whether your work was going to be seen or not. Nowadays, you don't have that barrier. So you can have obviously, your own website where you're showing your work and your own social medias, and you can have your own YouTube. So I would say, I mean, technology is probably the biggest change.
For sure. And because you've edged on that a little bit, how these days do you find the greatest success in marketing yourself? Because obviously digital is a beautiful space to be able to market yourself, but there's lots of competition out there.
Right. So I used to send out, when I started doing print promos, it was a postcard. and I would just send out hundreds. And then I graduated to doing booklets, like maybe a 20-page booklet that I would send out again by the hundreds,
Mhm.
maybe 800 at a time, 2 times a year. Maybe I would send those out. And I actually did that right up until the pandemic.
Mm.
And then that stopped all print because so many people were working from home. You know, we don't have their address.
Of course, yes.
And if you
Yeah.
send it to their office, they're going to come back to their office in a month and there's going to be a pile of promos. Are they ever going to see the promos? So, yeah, it just seemed a little bit like a waste of money to be printing and mailing stuff to maybe never be seen.
Mhm.
I mean, it was always a numbers game because, you know, you would send out, you know, say you send out 500 promos. How many are actually going to be looked at? How many of those people are actually going to call? But I found that I always made my money back from them. So I haven't done one since pre-pandemic.
Right.
I'm sort of planning one right now, but it's going to be a little bit more zine style than promo style.
Okay.
It will be a promo, but there'll be a little bit more writing in it, whereas before it was just photography.
Right.
But I do Instagram, I
Mhm.
do LinkedIn. I
Mhm.
try to be pretty consistent with LinkedIn and promoting without being obnoxious about it, which is, there's a fine line. So yeah, so that's, you know, that's the big, for me, that's the big difference in promotion. Before, print was pretty much what everybody did. And nowadays
Mhm.
people are still doing it. I don't know if it's as effective as it used to be.
Right.
So I think you just have to do everything. You have to do the
Right.
social medias, you have to do, you know, maybe a print promo once in a while, do reviews when you can. And I don't know if anyone's doing in-person meetings anymore. I haven't had one in a long time. So, but I think you have to just try all of it. It's, you know,
Mhm.
it's a numbers game. If people don't know you exist, you're definitely not going to get called. So yeah. So one thing I will say, just to plug you guys a little bit, is that PhotoBiz is really helpful in keeping track of who I've sent what to. So anytime I send out a promo in the notes, I just put the date and then what I sent them. And then sometimes I put a little code on, like if it's a new client, I'll put new in that field. And then maybe in a month, I'll search for all the new ones. And if there's like 20 new, then I can just batch send those 20 people. And then I just go through and just delete the new. Or if I'm only sending, like at the holiday time, I make up special prints and send those out to
Nice.
clients. So I will put in that field if they were one of the ones, if they got that promo. And then so like in 6 months, if I'm sending out print again, I can look and say, okay, I've already sent them that one. So I
Right.
find it super helpful for keeping track of who I've sent what to and when I sent it.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you. Appreciate the plug.
you're welcome.
And the advice on how to use the program, right?
Yeah.
For lots of people, what you're describing, that's what they do. They use certain features and they customize how they're using it to
Mhm.
what works best for them, which
Yeah.
I appreciate that, the insight on that.
Mhm.
So what advice would you give to someone just wanting to start out and becoming a freelance photographer?
I would say the first thing that they should do is assist other photographers.
Mm, great advice.
Work with other photographers, even if it's not an area that you think you're interested in, because maybe you'll work with them and you'll find out you actually do like it. Maybe you'll work with a food photographer and you'll say, this is kind of interesting. Or maybe you'll work with an architecture photographer or sports person. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can go, but you'll learn so much. So I would say, number one, do that. Don't try to think you're going to be a photographer as soon as you graduate from school, or, you know, before you're before you're ready, because you may be disappointed. But there's just so much to learn from older photographers, not only about photography and being on a set, but also just how to run a business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how to send invoices out, and when do you have to charge sales tax, and with what things do you charge for on a shoot, and what things do you not charge for, and where should your fee be when you're starting out. There's just so much to learn from older photographers that
Mm-hmm.
have been there, and I would find most photographers will be willing to help.
So anything else that you would like to share with us from your experience, both as being a photographer and perhaps, from your years and being involved with the ASMP in Connecticut?
Well, to start with ASMP, I would say that another thing that young photographers, or even older photographers, should do is join an organization. It doesn't have to be ASMP. There's lots of others. There's APA, there's PPA, depending on what kind of photography you do. There's probably a group for you. But I find it really so helpful to have a group of other photographers that I can call on and say, hey, I got a query from a client about this. What do you think about X, Y, and Z? And we will tell each other what we think, or what a number range, if that's the question, or does this sound fishy? Whatever it may be. It's just so useful to have a group of your peers that you can talk to about photography, because you can't talk to your friends about it. They don't, like any other industry, nobody gets it except other photographers. So I think it's just very helpful to have a group
Mm-hmm.
of photography peers and friends that you can go to when you need help, and also just for socializing and just to have fun with. We have a lot of events that try to have monthly events that are a little bit of socializing, a little bit of education, a little bit of information. So find an organization in your area. I'm sure there's one, or if there's not, you can start one.
Mm-hmm.
Meet in person.